It's a joy for me again to welcome visitors to the Rare Book Room and the Brodsky Faulkner Collection. I don't do this as often as I used to, but it's still a great pleasure. We have with us this afternoon a visiting scholar from Japan, a visiting scholar from China, another visitor from Japan, and a former student of mine and also a Faulkner scholar. So it's a good group, and we'll have fun looking at the materials, and after I give you a brief introduction to the room and the collection, I'll share with you some of the materials that we have for exhibit. I first met L.D. Brodsky in 1978. A student in one of my night classes had told me about the Faulkner collector who lived in his hometown, Farmington, Missouri, which is about an hour and a half from Cape Girardeau. And so I arranged a visit to meet Mr. Brodsky, and we very quickly struck up a friendship. We had a lot in common, of course. We're both poets, both love Faulkner. He collected Faulkner, and I knew how to write a footnote. So we made a pretty good team. And for the next 10 years, he and I produced 7 books, numerous exhibits and lectures and articles. For those 10 years, I had almost exclusive use of this private collection that belonged to L.D. Brodsky, a native of St. Louis, then living in Farmington, Missouri. I would travel to Farmington, I would travel to St. Louis, he would travel to Cape Girardeau. We worked in all of those places as we made the books, prepared the exhibits, and did the articles for various journals. After 10 years, L.D. decided to place his collection here at Southeast Missouri. Other institutions wanted the collection, but he wanted to keep it in his native state of Missouri. He and I, by that time, had a long friendship, and so he agreed to allow Southeast to acquire the collection. You can imagine my thrill as we moved all of the collection into this room, uncrated the boxes, shelved the books, laid out exhibits. Very exciting time. And that was 10 years into the, but I joke with LD because for 10 years, as I said, I had pretty much exclusive access to the collection. No other scholars were being allowed much to use the materials or even see them. Of course, after we put the material here and created the Center for Faulkner Studies, then the collection was open to the world. So you folks can come and use it, do your research. When we did the first exhibit here in 1979, LD was sort of flying under the radar. Not a lot of people knew that he was a Faulkner collector. And we did that first exhibit, and he said, "You blew my cover," because the exhibit was written up in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the Los Angeles Times, New York Times. Everybody now knew about the collection. "You blew my cover," he said. Well, 10 years later, when he moved the materials into this room, I said, "You blew my cover," because now other people can use the collection, not just me alone. The collection is one of 4 major Faulkner collections in the world. The other 3 are at the University of Mississippi, in Faulkner's hometown, the University of Virginia, where Faulkner lived in Charlottesville toward the end of his life, and where he was a resident writer in residence, and the University of Texas, which over the years at the Ransom Center there has built up quite a Faulkner collection. There are other smaller collections. New York Public Library, Yale, Berg Library, other New Orleans, at Tulane. Other schools and institutions have smaller collections, but there are 4 major ones. And we're privileged to be one of those 4. Each collection is unique. What we have, they don't have. What they have, we don't have. Virginia has more manuscripts than anybody else. We have more movie scripts than anybody else. Ole Miss has more early poetry than anybody else. Texas has early correspondence, manuscripts. So if you're a serious Faulkner scholar, as I tried to be for 50 years, you probably will wind up traveling to all 4 of those places, or at least being in touch with those places. Much of the material now is available online, or they will provide you with copies. So you might not have to physically travel there, but you have to know about those collections as well. This collection, as I said, one of 4 major collections. Our strength is movie scripts, mostly from the 1940s, early poetry, manuscripts, more signed books than any other, signed by Faulkner, than any other collection, late letters, and photographs. We may have the largest collection of Faulkner photographs of any of the other collections. But anyway, as I said, each collection has its strength and each has its weakness. But you need to know about or use all 4 of those if you're a serious Faulkner researcher. Do you have questions at this point about the collection, the acquisition of it, about Brodsky? I'll just do this brief introduction and then we'll move on and I'll share with you some of the materials in the collection.
You mentioned that the science books of the Faulkner in your introduction lecture now.
The science books?
Science books. What's the kind of the science books it is? It is a
first edition Faulkner novels.
Oh, no.
All the first, LD's collection has every first edition.
Okay, great, yes.
Plus later editions as well, but he has all of the first editions.
Wow, very good.
First editions, first printings, many of those signed by Faulkner.
Oh, science.
And I'll show you some of those as we move along.
Okay.
When I met LD, he was principally a book collector.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted the collection to be used by scholars for research. Mm-hmm. And if I had any influence on LD at all, it was simply to say to him, if you want this collection to be useful to scholars, mm-hmm. it will have to be broader than signed books. Mm-hmm. You need letters, mm-hmm. you need manuscripts, you need photographs. And so after we started collaborating, he broadened his collecting interest to bring together movie scripts and other kinds of, but as I said initially, he was just a book collector. Mm. But he branched out and acquired the other kinds of materials. Many of those are much more useful than a signed book. Mm. A signed book will tell you where Faulkner was on a given day.
Yeah.
Hollywood. And he signed he dated the book. So about all a signed book will tell you is where Faulkner was when he signed the book, right. And what the day was. But a letter, a photograph, a movie script, a manuscript. One of the prize manuscripts in this collection is an early draft of the short story Wash, which became a chapter in Absalom. Right. It's Faulkner's handwritten manuscript. And there are several of those in the collection, handwritten copies of poems, fiction, essays. But LD grew as a collector. He grew, he branched out, he added additional materials, and we wound up working together for 36 years. We collaborated for 36 years. He died in 2014. And until that time, we had met in 1978. He died in 2014. In all of that time, we worked together on this collection. Doing, as I said, books, exhibits, scholarly articles, whatever.
Yeah. I just want to add one information about the Brodsky. You are mentioning Brodsky is LD, you know? LD is a nickname of
Louis Daniel.
Louis Daniel
Brodsky.
So LD is
He
Louis
went by
Daniel.
LD,
Okay,
his
great.
initials. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little about the Brodsky, how you meet it and how you met him and what kind of the person he is actually?
How I met him?
Yeah. How you met you or kind of some information about him and about his personality or background.
Well, LD's father was a clothing manufacturer and also an investor in real estate in St. Louis. Very wealthy individual. LD went to a private school, a country day school, very exclusive school in St. Louis. He went to Yale University. He graduated with honors at Yale University. He did a master's degree in creative writing at San Francisco State University. He married. He went into business with his father. His father was the manufacturer of sport clothes, slacks, jackets. The father had 4 factories. Each one employed about 100 people. They made these sports clothes. He had a factory in Farmington, where LD lived. He had one in Illinois. He had one in Oklahoma. He had one in Okolona, Mississippi, pretty close to Faulkner's hometown. Those 4 factories manufactured the clothing, mostly slacks, sports slacks. We had faculty members from Cape Girardeau who would go to Farmington and purchase their jackets, their slacks, pants from LD Brodsky. When LD entered the family business, he opened a retail store everywhere in every town where the father had a factory. The father was not into retail. He just manufactured. And he would sell slacks to J.C. Penney, Sears, other brands. But LD came into the business and basically said, let's market our own product. Eventually, he operated 7 retail stores in those states: Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Mississippi. Everywhere there was a factory, he would open a retail store. LD managed the retail end of the business. The father handled the manufacturing part of the business. That's where they made their money.
Yeah.
And LD used part of his profit from his business to collect Faulkner.
Yeah. Very nice.
I met him because a student in a night class who lived in Farmington, Missouri, knew about LD, knew that he was interested in Faulkner. He told me about Mr. Brodsky, and I traveled there and met LD, and he showed me some of the materials, and from that point on, we became friends and began to collaborate on the materials. So.
Okay, I have 2 questions. So one is, just now you mentioned here we have Faulkner's early poems collection, maybe poetry, and many of them are handwritten. They are not published yet. So for these poems, I have read one book.
Any unpublished poetry, any poetry that was unpublished in this collection, when I met LD Brodsky, he and I have since published it.
Oh, okay.
All of the poetry We have the Marble Fawn, first edition. I'll show you a copy,
Okay.
signed by Faulkner.
Oh.
There was some unpublished poetry in this collection, but we have since published that. LD and I later published that.
I know
There are letters in this collection that have never been published.
Oh.
There are probably some manuscripts in the collection that have never been published. There are a couple of movie scripts, at least 2 that I know of, that have not been published, even today.
So I'm
But most of the material unpublished, we have published it in our books.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering how he get this unpublished poems and letters. So in what way he can get this rare material, very precious materials?
Where?
So where in what way he get this materials? How did he Brodsky get this material? Faulkner's unpublished book poems.
How did he acquire those?
Yeah, acquire those because it has been not been published yet. He got to know Faulkner's.
LD took the Joseph Blattner biography. It had just come out in 1974, the first biography of Faulkner, 2 volumes. LD took that biography, he read it thoroughly. He made lists of people who knew Faulkner who were still living, relatives, friends. It was a long list. They all had material. Every friend or family member had something. Letters, photographs, manuscripts. So LD went to visit those people.
Very smart.
He took his checkbook. He came home with materials, which he placed in this room, but he was much poorer when he came home
Yeah.
because he had written a check
Oh,
for many. There were people who donated materials to Brodsky because they respected what he was doing. They admired that. They wanted the material preserved. There were many people who just donated material to this collection. But LD was willing to purchase the material if that was what was required.
yeah. Okay.
And
Okay. So another.
when it's public record now, it's no secret. When we acquired this collection in 1988, the collection in this room, by the way, it is now twice the size it was when we acquired it. Because I said he continued to collect. Even after the collection came here, he continued to collect. So this collection now is about double the size as when I first saw it. But when we acquired that collection in 1988, opened the center in 89, the collection had to be professionally appraised, and it was appraised at a value of $3.5 million. Today, now that was many years ago, 88. That was 36 years ago. Today, an appraiser has estimated that this collection is worth $15 to $20 million. Some of the books I show you today would sell for $40,000 or $50,000. One book I will show you would sell for $75,000, and it is not a book by Faulkner. It's not a book by Faulkner.
Who is it?
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show
So
you.
another
So
question.
the books are of value, but so are the other materials. This was never a matter of money for L.D. Brodsky. It was a love of Faulkner, a love of literature, love of poetry. It was a labor of love for him. He never cared a whole lot. He didn't need the money. He had plenty of money. His family was wealthy, and so none of this was a matter of money for him. It was simply an avocation, an interest, and he had great fun with it, and he allowed me to participate in that fun, you know. So
Okay.
let's start by looking at some of the things on this table here. There are some items, representative items.
Okay.
You know, Faulkner started out as an artist,
Yeah.
and here is an early
Oh.
drawing, and I believe, well, he'd added the U. You notice by this time he had already added the U to his name. He signed, these are dancers. They're probably doing the Charleston. That was a popular dance in the 1920s.
Okay.
So you can see the dancers, and here Faulkner has signed his name.
Yeah.
His first published poem was L'après-midi d'enfant. This is I'm sure the original manuscript, handwritten manuscript. It's on the front of a Saturday Evening Post cover, penciled out here. He later expanded the poem. It was published in the New Republic in 1919, his first published poem. And this is the manuscript, the early manuscript of that poem. Faulkner in Pascagoula, Mississippi, he sat outdoors and typed the photograph. You know, late in life, he became a fox hunter. He liked to jump the horses. In fact, he fell off one of those horses, injured himself. That led to his final illness. He injured himself from a fall. Here is that original map that Faulkner drew of Yoknapatawpha County. He had drawn an earlier map for Absalom. He did this one in 1945 for Callie's Portable Faulkner. The early map has not apparently survived, so this is the only known hand-drawn map of Faulkner's County by Faulkner. We have loaned this map to the Library of Congress. They've exhibited it. It's one of the prized possessions in the collection, being the only extant hand-drawn map of Yoknapatawpha County. Early poetry manuscripts. You can see here, Faulkner's early manuscripts were stored in the attic of Phil Stone's house. There was a fire that burned the house, and only fragments were claimed later from the fire. These are some of we've identified some of these poems. There are other versions of them, but these are some of the burned fragments that survived the fire. When Faulkner was in high school, he did a series of cartoons for a high school yearbook. They didn't have the money to publish the yearbook, so these were never printed. He gave the drawings to a girlfriend, actually, and Myrtle Ramey, who married into the Faulkner family later. But in high school or junior high, maybe they were friends, maybe sweethearts. Faulkner gave these. There are 8 of them. There are also drawings on the back side of these. He gave them to his friend Myrtle Ramey. She kept them all those years, and then Brodsky acquired them later from Myrtle Ramey. The most interesting one is the caricature of Abraham Lincoln. You see, Lincoln is a villain, an ogre. The Southerners did not like Abraham Lincoln by and large. The teacher there is Miss Ella Wright, who is Faulkner's history teacher. She taught history from a Confederate point of view. To her, Abraham Lincoln was a villain. So he's pictured there as an ogre. That's not a likeness, he's a bad guy. Look at his feet. Standing at his feet, there is a big Union bully. That's a Yankee soldier, bully, armed with a knife, picking on an unarmed a smaller, unarmed Confederate. The North picking on the South. The North, the villain, the South, the victim. You see that in that cartoon. The caption says, "Them's my sentiments." Well, that's Miss Ella Wright's sentiments, for sure. She taught history from a Southern point of view, a Southern bias. But I'm guessing for the 16-year-old Billy Faulkner, without the U, those were his sentiments as well. As a young boy, Faulkner would have sided with the South against Abraham Lincoln, against the North. They were the invaders. Now, Faulkner outgrew that attitude. He became eventually an integrationist, a moderate on race. But he was raised, like many of us who grew up in the South, he was raised to be a racist. And for his young life, he probably was a racist. Some people claim he remained a racist even into his adult life, but I don't agree with that. But certainly in his youth, he was exposed to this racist Confederate viewpoint and probably accepted much of that, you see. You'll also see he didn't think much of school. He was a school dropout, so many of those cartoons reflect a hostility to teachers, to learning. There's the class riding on the bus, and one of them is jumping off the bus. He doesn't want to be in school anymore. That's probably William Faulkner jumping off the bus. And in these others, you see Faulkner as a student who he was brilliant, of course, but he didn't care much for formal education, and he dropped out of school before he even graduated high school. This is the funeral in Oxford, private funeral. Only friends, relatives were there. He's buried in Oxford, of course, in the St. Peter's Cemetery there in Oxford. You'll see that when you go to Oxford. Here are a couple of manuscripts. That's Faulkner's, that's the Wash manuscript that became part of Absalom. Tiny, minuscule handwriting. He liked to have the big margins on the side. If he could not buy ruled paper, he would mark off the margins himself, and he would make his corrections out in the margin, as you see here. Later, after Hollywood especially, he learned in Hollywood that the secretaries could not read his handwriting. So he had learned to type. He was a kind of a two-finger typist. But as he got farther into his career, he had to type more and more. After Hollywood, he didn't write in longhand. There are not a lot of late manuscripts of Faulkner that are handwritten. The later manuscripts are mostly typed. And you can tell Faulkner's typing easily because he makes a lot of errors and strikeovers and types off the bottom of the page, and but this is an early manuscript in holograph, handwritten. So, shall we look at some books?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Catherine, I may need your help with some of this, or Koichi maybe.
Yep.
You're the youngest, Koichi, so I need you to go up here. And open that case to the top. Behind it, there's throw that.
Oh, okay. I opened that, but I have to.
Let's see if we can. May have to do it at the bottom too.
Okay. I will. Okay.
Okay. You see the small books in the center
Press.
No, in the middle, The one, there's several looking alike, the marble fawn, see if, pull one of those,
Okay.
anyone. The ones that, you got your finger on, grab one of those. Yeah,
Okay.
just hand me one.
Just this is number one. Right. How Anderson it says.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, how are
Did
you?
they
Good.
warn
Come
you-
in, come in, you're
They
welcome.
warned you I was gonna stop by and just say hi.
Good to see you.
You too,
Good
it's
to
been
see
too
you.
long, I just wanted to say
Alright.
hi to you and.
Koichi, come here.
Oh, okay.
We'll get another one. Just get another one of those two. Get another one of those two. I'm not sure which one we have here. Oh, that's Sherwood Anderson. That's not the one. Wait a minute.
This is also the Anderson. Charles Anderson.
No, I'm looking for the marble.
Just now we
Okay,
make a group
should be
of-
on that.
This is a wishing tree.
And now.
No, oh, well, that's good. Let me see that.
Yeah.
And
Look for the
this is
marble
the-
fawn.
I'll sit for a minute, I just wanna kinda say hi, maybe get a photograph of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to be on that shelf.
And I'll use yours to get one for you, and then you can
Oh, okay.
drop them.
Oh,
Faulkner
okay.
Press, marble.
It's been a while since I've been in here, just.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are all the Charles Anderson.
All Creoles.
Mhm.
All Creoles, yes. So
Come
No.
down on this.
When they- when
This
they-
is
okay,
I'll
okay.
apply it.
okay,
Yeah.
the marble farm. Is it a manuscript or?
It should be on that top shelf.
Right. Okay. I will get it. Wait for a while.
Okay.
Marble farm.
I'll have to ask Grace.
This
See,
is
they've been
from
moved.
the old library, it was built 1935.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of social. All that way. I get it. Well, for being neighbors, I haven't seen you in a long
I
time.
know. We're looking for the marble fawn. We haven't found them
Oh,
yet.
good.
Faulkner made handcrafted books for friends. This one was made for a little girl who was dying of cancer, leukemia, a neighbor girl. And he made the typescript. He typed it. He bound it.
Okay.
He first gave it to the little girl who was dying of cancer. He later gave this same story in a similar binding and all to 4 different children.
Four.
Uh,
Okay. Quite interesting.
This one is for Victoria, who is Estelle's daughter,
Oh.
for her 8th birthday.
Oh.
Bill, he made this book. It's the same story he had given to the little girl dying of cancer, the brown girl, the neighbor girl. But it's another copy he made for, this was the second one he gave to Victoria. Estelle was divorced, back from Shanghai. Faulkner had resumed his courtship of Estelle Oldham, now Estelle Oldham Franklin. He took this gift to his little friend, Victoria.
Her daughter.
I think it's actually a gift to the mother.
Oh, quite interesting.
If you want to court the mother,
Yeah.
you be kind to her children,
Yeah.
right?
Make a note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he made a book for Estelle's daughter,
Oh, okay.
but the gift is as much to Estelle,
Oh,
I think, as
Oh.
to.
yeah. Oh, can I have a look at
But
it?
this typical
Okay.
of a handmade book that Faulkner would.
Oh. So Faulkner just type.
He
this-
typed that. He
Oh.
typed it, bound it. He
Ah.
put the book together himself. There's only one copy.
Only one.
Now that's
copy.
the rarest of a Faulkner book because it's a printing of one copy.
Yeah.
The book, the story has since been published,
Oh.
professionally, the wishing tree.
Yeah. So
He
which-
later gave a copy to Ford, the actress, Ruth Ford's daughter, and he also made a separate copy of that story for Phil Stone's son, Philip. So he gave a copy to the Brown girl, he gave a copy to Victoria, he gave a copy to Shelley Ford, he gave a copy to Philip Stone. Four versions of that story, handcrafted, given to people that he cherished, that he had a special friendship with, you know.
Oh, this wishing tree. This is a children's book, right?
Hmm?
This is the book is
It's a children's story.
book,
It's a
okay.
children's
So
story.
which year? She gave
The,
this?
the
She
story
gave-
itself was published after Faulkner died.
Okay, so
It was never published in his lifetime.
okay. I mean, which year did Faulkner give this to this 80
This
year?
this would have probably been,
Okay.
she's back in, well, here it is,
Oh.
1927.
1927.
Mhm.
Ah, good.
1927.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Could I get a photograph of you people? Now I will get out of here. I just want to get,
Okay.
call it evidence or
Uh.
whatever, but I just want to get a photograph of.
Okay.
of
Thank
your-
you.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Just
Uh.
kind of, where
Okay.
we're,
Okay. So can we just sit here?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
over.
Yeah.
I don't know where the marble fawns are.
I will
But-
call
Let-
Grace.
let's-
I will
why
go
don't we
to
go ahead and
Grace
just do
to
this?
catch her.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to, we
Wait
can
for a
just go and do this photo and I'll get out here and you all get back to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Shall-
Okay, yeah,
We can
hey,
just sit.
Can you?
Actually, I kind of, yeah, whatever. Okay,
Okay,
let me
okay.
get a little shot like this, and I'm gonna do two cameras with a, Bob, turn a little bit. Do your, okay. 1, 2, and 3, I'm gonna do 1 or 2 more, and the last one, let me take one with this other camera.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, don't go away, one more,
Okay. Thank you.
and. Okay. Everybody ready?
Sit down.
Yeah,
We can stand.
Everybody stand
I will
up,
stand.
up your bucket.
Okay.
That's Faulkner expression, up your bucket. In fact, man, yeah, if you want to just, join in, I'll get the books in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open bottle of water
Oh, yeah.
in the rare book room with all the documents, think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
You can
yeah.
tell we have a professional photographer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it's things like that, details, someone's gonna see this thing of water, this is in the rare book room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
will
You're
say-
right.
Okay, so anyway, guys, ready with a 1, 2, and 3, I'm gonna do one more, last one, and, okay, we good? I will get out of here. I just
Oh,
want to
thank
say
you.
hi.
Thanks for
and-
coming.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Thanks for
yeah.
coming.
Thanks,
Good to see
Tom.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
nice
you.
to see you.
Okay, and we'll see you later.
See you later. Thank you.
See you.
You can put these back.
Oh,
We're
okay,
not gonna
I
be
will.
looking at that other one.
I will.
You
Just,
too. How's your, everybody doing? Yeah, okay, see you guys later.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So where is Mama phone?
I will call the Grace and maybe she don't know it, but wait for a while.
So could you please write down your name and your address, and so you're Faulkner expert.
Okay, let's go to the other room to get the Grace.
So which is this book? Oh, what is this book?
The Sound of the Fury,
Oh, Sound.
but I'm
Pure.
looking for a signed one.
Oh, okay.
This is The Sound and the Fury.
Oh.
This is a German artist named Kathy Kollwitz. It's an expressionistic painting. This is death holding the female. In the original painting, which you can find on the internet, there's a baby.
Oh,
There's a
baby.
child trying to pull the mother out of the grasp of death. When they used this for the illustration on The Sound and the Fury, they took out the infant
Okay.
and they just left death and presumably Caddy.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
This was not drawn for this book.
Who had
It was
drawn
an
this?
earlier, it's actually a lithograph. A German artist, a lithograph, and they chose that illustration for the cover of this book, but they took out
The baby.
the baby.
Ah.
Many people looked at that cover and they thought, this is black, that's white. They saw the cover as race, but it has nothing to do with race.
Okay.
It's death.
Ah.
Death strangling the young woman, and the child was trying to save the mother.
So this drawing has been. It is a drawing that is not specific for this book, right?
Mhm.
So this drawing is drawn by someone else, not just for this book. It is for
It's
this
drawn
book?
by a German artist named Kathy Kollwitz.
Just for this book?
No,
No.
it was much earlier.
Much earlier. Okay.
Yeah, she
Ah.
lived 30 years ahead of Faulkner.
Okay.
They just selected her artwork to
Oh,
use.
okay.
Nobody knew. Faulkner had nothing to do
Okay.
with selecting the cover.
Ah.
He said that. He
Ah.
had nothing to do with the
Ah,
choice.
Okay, so American painter. Is it American painter? Okay. This is the first
No, don't
edition.
worry about
Oh, sorry. Is this the first edition?
Faulkner signed it.
Oh, Faulkner Study. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
This is a book signed. This is his first great novel,
Ah.
an early copy
Mm.
signed by William Faulkner. You see the Koichi, you have the signature of Faulkner here.
Oh, great. It's Faulkner's.
Yeah, his handwriting is quite good.
Mhm.
Ah.
Did she know where the marble phones are?
Actually, she will come at 3 o'clock, so wait for her for a while. But
Okay,
she
we'll,
don't think she is not good help for you, but maybe we can find out.
Well, I may not be able to find it. They have it somewhere else. We have, LD and I kept it on that top shelf. They moved stuff around. Right.
Wait for one.
You don't need to. Hold that one for me. Let's see. I don't know which one's signed. need to sit down.
Okay, yeah.
I'll tell you about the most valuable book in this collection. Probably.
Oh, Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And
William Faulkner.
to Mr. Faulkner,
To Mr. Faulkner.
without obligo, A. Einstein, 54.
Mm.
They met at Princeton,
Oh.
Ah, great.
and they met at a dinner party. Both of them were very shy. They hardly spoke to anybody, we're told.
Yeah.
But the next morning, Einstein walked across the campus to Sax Cummins' home where Faulkner was visiting, and he brought Faulkner this book, and he wanted to give him a copy of his book. This is a book signed by a Nobel Prize winning physicist to a Nobel Prize winning author.
Very valuable.
We've been offered $75,000 for it.
75,000.
That was years ago.
Ah.
Uh,
5,000.
it's a very rare book.
Right.
And without obligo, you know, you don't have to pay me back, you don't have to give me a book, you don't have to, you're not obligated in any way to return the favor.
Right.
It was just a gesture of goodwill that Einstein wanted to present to Faulkner. There's no evidence that Faulkner reciprocated in any way with a return gift. But this book was carried to Oxford, Mississippi. Well, it was in Princeton. It was given to Faulkner in Princeton. He took it home with him to Roanoke. After Faulkner's death, Estelle gave this book to Jim Silver, a history professor at Ole Miss. He took the book with him to Notre Dame when he left Ole Miss to teach at Notre Dame. He later left Notre Dame, moved to South Florida, took the book with him. L.D. Brodsky acquired the book from Jim Silver in Florida, brought the book to Cape Girardeau.
Ah.
So this book has been around a lot of different places, but it's been, the dust jacket was torn. L.D. paid a book binder in Chicago to repair this dust jacket, to put it back into, it was in pieces.
Oh.
So they lined it, they put a lining inside it and tried as best they could, restored it, because he wanted the book in its original condition, the book that Faulkner would have handled. He held this book, you know, with this dust jacket. So, we talked about that cartoon where Faulkner was raised with a Southern bias. Faulkner later became in support of integration. He supported racial justice, equality. He was criticized, threatened in his own hometown for his stand on race. He was considered a liberal. He was not a liberal, he was a moderate. But he was considered a liberal. People in Oxford turned against him. One reason he wanted to move to Virginia was to escape some of the criticism and censure that he was receiving in Oxford. Some of his neighbors turning against him because of his stand on race. Phil Stone, who paid to have his first book of poems published, was Faulkner's best friend. Phil Stone was the lawyer who was Faulkner's best friend for years and years and years. Phil Stone never changed from that racist attitude He went to Yale, but his education didn't do much for him. He apparently, though there may have been other racists at Yale, I don't know. I don't know the school that well, the history of it. But Phil Stone never he never changed his attitude. He was an unreformed Confederate, a racist, a segregationist his entire life, never changed. When Faulkner started voicing liberal opinions, Stone quit talking to his best friend. He would not even speak to Faulkner. Faulkner continued to give Phil Stone a signed copy of every book he ever wrote. Faulkner was loyal to that friendship. This is the last book Faulkner published. This may be the last book Faulkner signed 2 weeks before he died.
2 weeks.
He signed it to Phil and Emily Stone. And it's dated June 1962.
12 June.
He died 3 weeks later. 3 weeks later. When Faulkner took this book to Phil Stone's law office to give it to Phil Stone, Phil Stone saw Faulkner walk in the front door. He walked out the back door and would not stay and speak to his lifelong friend. Faulkner left the book with Phil Stone's secretary. Give it to Phil. Maybe the last book he signed. It's the last date I've seen.
So after Faulkner's death.
Gave it to Phil and Emily. Emily was Phil's wife.
Okay.
I knew her. I didn't know Phil Stone. He was actually Phil Stone. When I was in Oxford, he became basically insane, and he had been committed to an asylum, bad health, and I never met Phil, but I knew Emily, his wife. And LD got this book from Emily Stone, you know, the widow.
So, Dr. Hamblin,
Well,
so after, I'd like to ask a question. After, just now you mentioned the detail, it's quite impressive. So after Faulkner's death, what is Phil Stone's attitude towards him?
after his death, what?
Faulkner's death, what is Phil Stone's attitude towards Faulkner's death, and did he
I
feel?
don't recall. I don't recall if Phil was able to attend the funeral. I think he's in that photograph. I think he's one of those. He was respectful at death, but they never became friends again.
Okay.
They never became friends again.
It is a very interesting episode for me because if you are reading the later part of the Faulkner's novels, you can find out that the Faulkner is a little more strongly criticizes the Confederate attitude of the Jefferson or American South people, especially about the elite people, you know. If you are actually reading the Faulkner's, for example, the town, Faulkner actually recognizes that the Jefferson people, you know, the Jefferson's middle class people are too much strongly Confederate, you know, until the beginning of the 20th century. So their attitudes are very strongly criticized and a little more humorously depicted about that in the beginning of that novel, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so
There are about, at one time, L.D. Brodsky had 200 books signed by Faulkner. 200. He sold some of those, swapped some of those for other materials. I'm guessing there probably now are about 150 books in these shelves signed by Faulkner.
Okay.
But they're all typical. You've seen all the signatures look alike.
150. Okay. So by the way, so just now you mentioned the most valuable book here, maybe I sense. So how much? What is the this book now?
I have no idea.
You have an idea? Okay.
You know, in collecting, something is worth
Yeah.
whatever someone is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
The typewriter over there,
Uh,
that's one of the last typewriters Faulkner used.
oh, okay.
We couldn't find the marble fawn.
Yeah, so.
They're supposed to be on that top shelf
Right.
up yonder with the early books. The first, his first book, they're chronological order,
It's one
you
of
know.
the ones in the
Um,
boxes, right? I don't trust that thing. I don't know how to place it.
Okay, I will move it.
Okay, sorry. That's my steps through
Yeah.
when I'm in here. Thank you. I got it. Okay.
So you want a pair
Yeah.
instead of a
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be. Okay.
给老师，到这里来一下，到这里来一下，不是，你过来一下，你过来一下。
We found the Creoles, but I couldn't find the fawns. They should be there together.
哎呦，对，可能是可以去以后还在 YouTube 上来搜一下，你可以进来听，可以吗？Okay. Let's look at take a look.
That's Creole.
觉得非常这个非常这个机会非常难得，非常珍贵。
Do you remember what the binding looks like?
I think they were in little
They were in little
folders
boxes
like that. There were about 5 of them.
So to open this, I will help
Those
you.
shouldn't be, well, that says marble fawn right there.
That's it, yeah, that's
Okay.
it, that's it. It's in the door down there, last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't look closely enough.
So you're good. Normally when I'm in here by myself, I wish that you were here in spirit while looking for things. Yeah, there's 5 of them. Which one do you want? Do you want all of them?
Just a couple, let's see if I can find the one signed by Stone Faulkner.
I think a lot of them have it on
Oh.
the edge. Lafayette County Library, Percy copy, Albert Percy.
Koichi, you'll be interested in this one.
Okay.
This is a first edition Marble Fawn, first book of poems, 1924. This copy is signed by Faulkner to Joe Parks. Joe Parks is the prototype for Flem Snopes.
Oh.
He's an Oxford banker. In fact, he owned the farm that Faulkner eventually bought. One reason Faulkner wanted to buy it was because his old nemesis used to own it. That's Flem Snopes, Joe Parks. And this is the book signed to Flem Snopes, or the person who, the model. Yeah.
正好相反的方向，相反的方向。
Yes.
哦
All
，OK，
right.
没
Okay.
没 OK，好。
Thank you.
Marble
Okay,
Fawn.
thank you.
The Marble Fawn, first edition.
Yes.
Can I have a look at it?
These-
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Those were once considered the rarest of the Faulkner books, but they're actually not the rarest.
To my mother.
This one is signed by Faulkner.
Yeah.
And another one of the copies is signed by Faulkner and Stone. Stone paid to have this book published.
Oh yeah, yeah.
His friend Phil Stone paid to have Faulkner's first book. There's Myrtle Ramey. That's the woman he gave the cartoons. That was his. He says, my old friend and what does that say? Schoolmate.
Schoolmate. Okay.
Oh, here's Stone. Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
See, this is the one. Faulkner has inscribed it to Myrtle Ramey, his high school friend, to whom he gave the cartoons. And
Awesome.
Stone has added a greeting to Myrtle Ramey. That's Phil Stone's signature. And then Faulkner signed it. That's the one I was looking for.
Yeah, this is quite,
It's signed by.
quite precious.
Be careful with the binding.
Yeah, yeah. How can you show this in your video?
Mm-hmm.
In the video, how to show this?
So like this.
Yeah. Very valuable.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
So why Joe Parks is actually the friend of the William Faulkner? He's a kind of the.
I wouldn't say he was a friend. He bought a copy of the book of poems and Faulkner signed it for him.
Right.
You
Okay.
probably. I mean, I don't
Right.
think they were close friends.
Mm.
Faulkner probably didn't give him the book.
Mm. No. Oh, okay.
Parks probably bought it and asked Faulkner to sign it for him.
Mm.
But he was a businessman. He took over the bank from Faulkner's grandfather.
Mm.
He was a very wealthy Oxford resident, and he was sort of an antagonist against the Faulkner family.
Right.
His big complaint of the Faulkners was he was president of the bank like Flem Snopes became, and he took the bank from Faulkner's grandfather,
Mm.
and that was a model for the Flem Snopes. Well,
Okay, this way?
Okay.
Okay, this way. Okay. So, who this person is?
Oh, this person is a very wealthy
Banker. Okay.
banker. Yes.
Ah,
And he buy this one and
okay.
yes,
Ah,
Faulkner
so-
signed it.
okay. So there are 5 copies of this?
I think he had 5 copies. They're all alike,
Oh, okay.
just different signatures.
You can put inside of the one with this. Can you find out empty one? No.
Okay, questions? I think I've shown you representative materials. They're more of the same, but,
Okay.
you know, very similar.
Oh,
So,
how about as I lay dying? So
Hmm?
as I lay dying, this is
as I lay dying,
yeah, this is also his masterpiece. Can we have a look at that? Okay.
as I lay dying.
Okay. They are outside.
All of those. Those are different.
Different.
Get one that's easy to get out.
As I lay dying.
That was Clint Brooks's copy. He was a famous Faulkner
Oh,
scholar.
yeah. Very famous. Oh, so we're gonna just give this book to him, right?
You can walk along and look at the other titles if you want to look at other titles. All the books are here. They're in chronological order of publication.
So altogether there are about 150 signed books, right? You mentioned there are altogether 150 books.
150 signed by Faulkner.
Oh, yeah.
There are probably 500, 600 books,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
but 150 or more of them are signed.
By Faulkner.
Many of these are later editions.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
they're not.
Oh,
This is the first edition, light in August.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can I open the title?
The
Faulkner
town? Sure.
Right? Okay, I will bring it by myself. Maybe the box one. I'm not so sure if you can find some
That's the first edition you had.
Yes, I think. Maybe this is a very fast one. You can find
Mm-hmm.
These are Japanese.
Japanese
or
editions?
the-
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Japanese editions. Oh, so which year? Did
Last year, right?
1969?
Mhm.
Oh, Chinese, Japanese edition. Oh, Koichi, you can have a look at this.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
it's a
Japanese.
This is a
edition.
very Japanese edition of
Yeah.
Faulkner. And
Ah.
this is, yes, Sound of the Fury.
Oh, Sound and Fury.
Yes,
Oh,
this
okay.
is part of the series of all the work of the Faulkner in Japanese version.
Ah, so quite early, right?
Yes, quite
1969.
early. Well,
Yeah.
yes, the five of the, we are having maybe around 30 volumes of the Faulkner's own works. So
Ah.
this is the early ones of those.
Okay. And in China, we translated Sound and Fury in 1984. Later, quite later,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So the famous translator Li
Mhm.
Wenjun has
Mhm.
done a lot of translation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. There are no Chinese here. No Chinese in this.
I'm sure there's some Chinese editions in here somewhere. I don't know where they'd be scattered, but they'd probably be
Okay. Ah, okay.
later.
Okay.
I don't remember. There should be some. I don't remember which ones.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to have to leave very shortly, so maybe we can come back later if you want to see.
Yeah, I think.
Okay,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
See more.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
But you get a sample of the material.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yes.
later on, we can also go here to have a close look at this. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Grace will come and
Oh, okay. I
close
will ask
everything
Grace.
down.
everything too.
Ah, yeah, good. Thank you for your book.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you
Okay,
for
we-
your
You're welcome.
guidance.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
really learned
It's
a
very,
lot.
very,
I'll see
very
you,
interesting. See you.
Wednesday.
2 days later, yes. Wednesday.
Wednesday at 2.
Wednesday 2,
Nice to
okay.
meet you.
I will send you my paper
Good.
before that.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Please
thank
check
you.
it.
Thank
Thank you.
Glad you could join us.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for your coming
having
along.
me. It's really
Nice to meet you.
Koichi, would you put these back?
Right.
You go in that corner up there. Yeah, thank you. Do we have all the books put away? I think we do. She'll lock up everything.
Yes.